Hello, everyone. It's Philip Lee returning with another episode of Civil War Chat. It is now Thursday, the 6th of October, 2022. Click on the subscribe button down here in the lower right to subscribe, and also the notification bell in the far upper right to be notified when future episodes are released. Now, if you click on that notification bell and then offer a comment below, which is sufficiently offensive to our opponents, I will discuss it on next week's show or the next show. So today's topic is, let me just pull up my notes. Iconoclasm promotes racist hurricane relief. And what I mean by iconoclasm is the attack on Confederate statues. After Dylan Roof killed 9 people at a black church in Charleston, South Carolina 7 years ago, the identity politics crowd used the incident to justify the removal of Confederate statues. Organizations like the NAACP and the Southern Poverty Law Center quickly realized that campaigns against Confederate statuary were easy tickets to massive fundraising, big wallets, particularly among elite charitable organizations such as the Mellon Foundation. Donations by such prestigious charities enabled the cultural elite to put the blame for systemic racism on those Southerners today who value the region's traditions by wanting to keep the statue standing. As always, opportunistic politicians hopped on the bus for a free ride. But what is systemic racism? According to the identity politics mob, it can be recognized by the so-called disparate impact of government policies. Prison inmates, for example, are 38% Black, whereas the race represents only 12% of America's population. Thus, the disparate impact is that Blacks are more than 3 times as likely as whites to be imprisoned, which is 38 divided by 12. Since the only reason they can think of for the disparity is systemic racism, anti-racist theory demands that over 2/3 of Blacks be released from prison to reduce their share of inmates to 12%, approximately the same their share of population in the United States. Now, this argument ignores the fact that Blacks commit a disproportionately large share of violent crimes. For example, the 51% of homicides and 45% of robberies committed by Blacks results in an average of 48%, which is 4 times higher than their proportional share of the U.S. population. Thus, their propensity to commit these violent acts is 4 times greater than the average American. And the 48% of those that do commit these crimes is higher than their 38% share of inmates who are Black. So in other words, if you compare the 48% of violent crimes with the 38% of share of inmates who are Black, then Blacks are underrepresented in the prison system, if you use those statistics to make that measurement. But let me just put up some statistics here that will show you what we're dealing with. Okay. Again, here's the table. Percent of America's population that is Black is 12%. The percent of America's population that is white is 62%. Robberies, Blacks commit 45%. Homicides, 51%. And their percent of population is 38%. But the average of the robberies and homicides is 48%, which is higher than the percent of Blacks in as a proportional share of the population of inmates in prisons. Okay, so let me just continue with my presentation here, my notes. By ignoring such statistics, Biden proposes a student loan forgiveness program that racially favors Blacks. Specifically, Pell Grant recipients are entitled to $20,000 in debt forgiveness as compared to only $10,000 for all other students. Moreover, Pell Grant recipient loan forgiveness applies to households with as much as $250,000 in annual income, whereas the limit for everyone else is $125,000. More importantly, about 60% of Pell Grant recipients are Black, which is 5 times their proportional representation of America's population. 60 divided by 12 is 5. Thus, the Pell Grant carve-out gives Black students a 5-to-1 advantage over other students for a doubling of the forgiveness amount and the annual income limit. Now, there's a word for that, and that word is racism, but in this case, it's anti-white racism. Next comes Vice President Kamala Harris arguing that hurricane relief should be based upon equity, meaning that Blacks should be given an extra boost by the government because it is government policies that force them into a lower economic status. She presumes that equality of opportunity for Blacks individually was negated by systemic racism. She denies all other possible explanations for the differences between the races in terms of economic status. Other differences, such as cultural differences, including the low percentage of two-parent households among Blacks. Therefore, according to Harris, Blacks must be moved to the front of the hurricane relief line. Now, the false notion that America is presently systemically racist gained critical traction during the period of the last 7 years when most Americans just simply acquiesced to the attacks on Confederate iconography. Since then, the slippery slope has toppled icons from other regions and America as a whole. Examples include Theodore Roosevelt and Christopher Columbus. In January, the city of Fort Myers, which is the county seat of Lee County, put a high priority on removing a bust of Robert E. Lee, for whom the county is named. The advent of Hurricane Ian leaves the area's government leaders with truly important problems this time. Hopefully, the vice president's suggestion that Black hurricane victims get to cut to the front of the relief line will not be among such problems. Okay, let's see. I want to recommend that you get my book, The Confederacy at Flood Tide. It covers the period from June of 1862 to December of 1862, when the Confederacy was most likely to win its independence. It's available for at Amazon and Barnes & Noble for $26. If you'd like to get an autographed copy from me, it's $30. I'll cover the postage in the United States. And you would have to email me to work out the payment. My email is phil_Leigh, Leigh, @me.com. Okay, that's our show for today, and thanks for watching.